And today's handoff to Joe. Some hikers in Nevada this week may run into a strange object. A mysterious metal monolith has popped up just north of Las Vegas. Vegas area police tweeted, quote, "We see a lot of weird things when people go hiking, like not being prepared for the weather, but apparently even police officers were surprised by this metal structure." If this story feels familiar, here's why. In 2020, during the pandemic, another mysterious monolith was discovered in Utah, and it looked pretty similar to this new one in Nevada. So is this the work of an artist, aliens, or random YouTube pranksters?
I'm going aliens.
I had a feeling you'd take the wild card, Joe.
I think aliens, too.
Well, what was the explanation for the last one? Do you remember? I don't.
Guys, it's giving art installation, I think, right?
Yeah.
But I also disagree. I'm sure they've seen stranger things on hiking trails
in
out there in Vegas.
Come on. It has to stay there, though, right?
That's How about
true.
Artists who are aliens?
Let's go with that.
Middle ground.
Okay.
I like that. We can agree.
Welcome, everyone, to the Wake Up Call channel. The only aliens I see were those goons on your local news station who are talking about the monoliths that are appearing and, of course, mentioning aliens. Those are the only real aliens that exist. Most of these news anchors who come right out of the Tavistock Institute aren't even real human beings. And you can tell by their formulated behavior that, unfortunately, wears off on the rest of the people in our society who act just as corny and as fake as those people do. So, if you haven't heard, the monolith, once again, has popped up, and all the media is covering the monolith. Now, one of the things we need to understand about the monolith is that a lot of people out there think that there's something biblical about the monolith popping up. Now, I'll tell you for a fact, it isn't making the news if it's biblical, because they will hide it from people if it was something that's biblical, kind of like they did with a lot of things that have actually been found that prove God's existence. They've hidden things like Noah's Ark. They've hidden things like Sodom and Gomorrah, the locations of these places, to make it seem like God doesn't exist. They would not put this on the mainstream media news unless there was an agenda behind it. So, of course, the headlines and the narrative that all of these Tavistock puppets are repeating are, is it aliens? Is it artists? Or is it pranksters? Another mysterious monolith appears. Now, for those of you that don't know what a monolith is, you can obviously see it on your screen. This gigantic, large, single upright block of stone. In some situations, some of these monoliths, of course, as you can see, all have been mirrored. They've all been covered with a reflection, a mirrored reflection on it. That's because these monoliths are used in witchcraft. That is the narrative that they will not bring up as to why these are popping up in all of these random locations. They're popping up because the government is putting them there. The government is placing these strategically in these spots, and they want you to think it has something to do with an alien. Now, of course, they can use these things eventually as part of the alien deception. The more that they tell you these stories are out there, the more people, without realizing it, are actually getting conditioned into believing that aliens are real. And again, aliens are not real. Demons are real. And things like this, these types of monoliths, are actually used in black magic rituals to summon spirits. Now, we've seen predictive programming with this monolith already. We've seen it so many times throughout the history of cinema, which is really nothing more than programming. We've seen it in Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey, where the meaning of it in that, according to Stanley Kubrick, was the monolith triggered an evolutionary shift. That's what it meant, an evolutionary shift. And upon discovering it, the tribe learns how to make weapons and evolves from there. Well, we're currently going through a transformation, a human transformation, where we're seeing human beings mixing iron and clay, mixing their genetic code, or I should say altering their genetic code. So if it means that a lot of these films that we've seen it in, like Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey, if they're going to talk to you about how it represents transformations, well, think about the transformation again that's going on now. It's a common theme that we always hear of. Another show called The Witcher. Does that sound enough New World Order for you, Illuminati for you? The Witcher, right, of course. Just another show talking about witches, which everybody out there thinks is fake. You never hear on the news that somehow these monoliths could be involved in doing some type of ritual which could invoke some type of spirit or entity, because they want you to think all that stuff is fake. So on the TV show The Witcher, the monoliths are places of great power. and have the ability to alter the course of the entire continent. This is an exact quote from the synopsis of the show The Witcher, which uses a monolith as part of the theme of the show. They say their sudden importance in blood origin may even foretell of a dangerous future in The Witcher. Chaos, the main source of magic, is extremely powerful around the monoliths, right? So the monoliths also represent other dimensions. You may be familiar with this one, right? How many movies or TV shows have you seen mirrors used when summoning demons or spirits, right? Mirror, mirror, or magic mirror on the wall, depending on which you believe it is. In Disney, right, when the witch looks into the mirror. How many witch movies have we seen where spirits are shown passing in the background of a mirror when someone's looking into the mirror? Because mirrors represent portals. So there's a lot of significance to these things popping up all over the place. Now, if you go into some of the teaching, some of the books that these witches actually read, monolithic magic is actually a thing. The ability to gain magic from the creation and use of monolithic structures. Now you add in the mirror there, which we know they use to summon spirits. They use it as portals for summoning spirits while doing these black magic rituals. You've even seen the monolith is actually even shown on the back of the tarot cards. The Moon Tarot card has monoliths on the background of it. So while the news anchors in the mainstream media continually show you this, they want you to see it. Remember, anything that airs in the news, they want you to see. Okay? If something biblical occurred, they wouldn't show it to you on the news. They wouldn't make it known. They hide those things. They show you things that they want to use to gatekeep you. They're using this specific story to make people go, wonder what that is. Could that be art? It actually enhances, if you study these people, it enhances the power of the spell. And think about the hypnosis that everybody is under through the news, through the media, through movies and television and everything else that's out there, right? Everybody's under a hypnosis. So it's even enhancing the spell that they're putting on everyone. So they want you to think it's aliens. They want you to think, well, it's in Space Odyssey. What could it possibly mean? Oh, it's in The Witcher show. What could it possibly mean? What do you think? Somebody's driving out to the middle of the desert? How much money do you think one of these things costs to make? Okay? You aren't going to Home Goods and finding this thing in the mirror section and putting it in the back of your truck and driving out in the middle of the desert and sticking it in the ground and not worrying about it falling over. It's clearly strategically put there. Now, what I'm saying is they're likely using these things in performing rituals out in the open. There's probably significance to the locations of these spots that they're popping up. We saw it in Utah. We've seen it in other countries. I just covered it in March because it's continually happening. So the location definitely has significance to them. Now, we could look at all the rituals that we've read about or heard about, ones that I've covered here with Aleister Crowley and the summoning of Lam, all these spirits that they summon out in the middle of the desert. And you could start saying to yourself, well, these are probably the types of portals that they're using to summon certain entities. Now, regular people hear this stuff, and with regular people, we just mean sheeple. They think all this stuff is crazy mumbo jumbo, but they're more likely to believe that an alien apparently flew down and, took a dump and out came a monolith in the middle of the desert. That's what the media wants you to think about. So let's look at the story that they're giving everybody as to why these things are popping up. I love how it's not even the notion in the media. Like, they wouldn't even be like, did the government put it there? It's just, is it aliens or is it art? Yeah, some artists decided to make this, drive to the middle of the desert and stick it there. I mean, why would he do that? What is he gaining from it? What's the motive? Motive. Never hear that when it comes to any of the crap they tell us in the news, only when you watch crime shows. So another mysterious monolith has been spotted, this time on a Las Vegas hiking trail in Nevada, according to the Metro Police. It says we see a lot of weird things when people go hiking, like not being prepared for the weather, not bringing enough water. But check this out, the department wrote in a Facebook post on Tuesday, showing images of a mirrored structure. How did it get up there? The monolith was found over the weekend near Gas Peak. Yeah, sums it up. North of Las Vegas, it added. I mean, these people are just, gas is coming out of their mouths when they give you the excuses and the reasoning behind this stuff. It's incredible. It really is. Talking out of their rear ends. The police did not immediately respond to CNN's request for comment. The pillar is reminiscent, and of course it makes the news, right? Makes the news. What if you went in your woods and you stuck some weird thing in the middle of your woods, right? Just say hypothetically you have an idea in your head. You want to put up a giant pyramid in your woods, 33 feet tall, right? No one will be suspicious. Okay, how do you get that on the news? If you called the local news and you were like, this thing popped up in my woods, I didn't put it there, do you think it would make the national news? Do you think suddenly CNN would be running stories about it, or Good Morning America, or every single TV show out there would cover it? What are they all on the phone with each other? You called your local news, they're like, oh my goodness, you won't believe this. A guy found a pyramid in his backyard. What? Yeah, out in his woods. Do you think maybe he's setting you up? He put it there himself. He's trying to trick you. I don't know, but we should call CNN and ABC and NBC, and we should get it on the news immediately. Why? Well, we don't know why. Maybe to make people believe that there's an alien deception coming. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, do people even think about how this stuff makes the news? What, if somebody went hiking and saw this thing in the middle of the desert and they called in, just like they did a couple years ago? They had the phone number on speed dial on their phone. Hey, hang on, Jim. Just going to call CNN. I got their number right here to get directly through to the editor so that we can get this on the air tonight. Huh? Yeah. No, of course it doesn't make sense, but nobody thinks anymore. So the pillar is reminiscent to the ones popping up all over the country and all over the world, shortly after a 10-foot silver monolith was discovered in late 2020 by a helicopter crew flying over the Utah desert. Similar structures appeared in California on mountaintops, in Romania, and the Isle of Wight off England's south coast, to name a few. Isn't it interesting to note that when we see a lot of these structures that we look at as structures where they do witchcraft and sorcery, kind of like Stonehenge, these slabs or the Georgia Guidestones, they look a lot like this thing. The only difference is that this thing actually has a mirror on it. It's a mirror reflection, right? And then again, we know mirrors are used in witchcraft and sorcery. We might not be experts on why or what, okay, but we know that it represents portals and dimensions. They tell us this stuff. You could look it up yourself in witchcraft. Why they use these things. Oh, it's a portal. Oh, it's a dimension to summon things over. You don't have to believe that it actually exists if you don't want to. But what do you think? These people are practicing this stuff because nothing happens when they do it? Witches are still around doing this stuff, and then they go do it in their basement, and then nothing occurs, but then they try again the next day? Well, of course they're getting results. That's why it's continually happening. That's like saying you started something in your basement, where suddenly, you take a dump in a cup, and you try to levitate the cup, and the cup doesn't levitate, right? You going to do it again tomorrow? Well, I hope not, for your sake. But clearly when they do this stuff, it works and it's real. They just don't want you to realize that it's real. That's why they keep you in this hidden reality with all this other nonsense, telling you that men can have kids. That's the type of hypnosis they've got people under. So this thing is out in the open again, okay? And they don't mention witchcraft. They don't mention sorcery because they don't want you to think that that stuff is actually real. But if you look at some of the stuff I just mentioned, okay, people aren't just showing up at these places. They're strategic locations. They're clearly using these things as portals for something, some entranceway for something. And as crazy as that sounds to some people, well, guess what? Like I said, those same people probably put their teeth under their pillow expecting the tooth fairy to come. And when their mom puts a $20 bill under their pillow, even though they're 40 years old, they still think it's the tooth fairy. So for any of those people that think that it's a crazy notion that portals and dimensions exist, why don't you start looking into all these CIA operations or DARPA-related operations that have to do with time travel, dimensions, portals, or just look at CERN and what they're trying to do there, okay? So this type of stuff, it's hilarious when they put this on the news, and people out there don't think at all. They just see it. They're like, whoa, neat. A monolith. They don't even know what a monolith is, right? They're like, oh, right. Wasn't that in a Space Odyssey with the alien? Oh, okay. Right? So then they just start thinking, oh, well, the media's telling us it could be aliens. Well, why would an alien come down and stick one of these things in the middle of the desert? Why is it going to Romania and sticking one there? Oh, well, we don't know what the motive is because it's from an alien. Oh, right. And the source is who? Oh, the television set, the most unreliable source on the planet. You know, the same one that tells you that all white people are racist and that men could have kids and kids should castrate themselves and be like John Bobbitt when they're 3 years old. Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. What's the one thing they won't talk about on the news? Well, you never hear them talk about witchcraft. You never hear them talk about Satanism unless they're spewing some type of propaganda calling it satanic panic, right? I wonder why. Because if everybody realized who these people really are, just like in other periods in the past, they would lose their power. Their spell over the masses would be broken. And they need to keep everybody under that spell. And that spell is thinking that they don't exist. What's the expression? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. Well, that's what the witches follow. That's what witches and warlocks follow. You might remember, I don't know who's here anymore while I'm ranting, but some of you, the video is on my website, okay? When I started a long time ago, even though I'm a brand new YouTuber, wink, wink, I was doing videos exposing these witches. And I had obsessed loser, just complete lowlifes who were obsessed with my channel. And all they did, and they still do, they follow it around, they flag it, because I was exposing witches and Satanists as real. And they were seeing that people were coming to my channel, they're like, oh wow, this stuff is real. This guy is on to stuff. He's showing us signs, he's showing us symbols. Okay, there's some truth to this, right? So the witch and the warlocks, they were doing videos and telling each other not to do anything, like not to come over to my channel, because then it would prove that they actually exist, that they need to follow their secret oaths. And they have the same secret oaths that the Freemasons have. And those secret oaths are keeping a vow of silence and secrecy. So all these witches would come out and they're like, well, we're witches, but we don't do what he says we do. And then they all got butthurt with each other because they were all trying to figure out how to silence me, but then they were at the same time, they were exposing who they really were, right? So I humiliated these witches and warlocks. Yet, of course, their channels are still up. They're still allowed to speak freely. And again, if anyone's new to this, well, this won't be around for much longer anyway, because that's how this story goes. Expose the truth, you get silenced. Who can't you expose? Satanists, witches, they don't want you to think that this stuff is real. These types of things with monoliths, they tie directly in to black magic and to witchcraft. That's what they tie into. They don't tie into some type of an alien, because aliens aren't real, but demons are real. And they're gonna deceive many, whether they use Project Bluebeam or other deceptions to convince people that, oh, they're coming in from Mars, or they're gonna be coming in from portals and dimensions. So these things are gonna be set up all around the earth. And people become more desensitized to it every day, that when they reveal this stuff, people just be like, oh yeah, that guy's a conspiracy nut, but this stuff is really going on. And then when the media tells them it's aliens, not demons, they'll just believe it, because they've been programmed into believing it. So more monoliths popping up. Sorry about the rant. I mean, I see this stuff and I just go, what is the basic person doing when they're watching the news? Do they even think that far back to go, how does this make the news? No, they don't. They never do. And when I bring that up to people, their mind gets blown. And I'm like, how is your mind blown? It's the simplest thing to think about. How do you get on the news? It's one thing, right? If you commit a crime, right? Some guy does something to his wife does something, the wife does something to the husband, whatever, right? Okay, the police are called. Then all of a sudden the story somehow trickles out from there. We don't even think that far out, do we? How it gets to the local news. But think about these types of stories. This is on CNN, Good Morning America. All the local affiliates are covering a monolith in the middle of the desert in Nevada. Nobody goes, how does this get on the news? Who are you calling to get it on the news? And then who decides if this is newsworthy? And if it is, why are they telling us that it's newsworthy? Oh, I don't know. So they could manipulate you, because that's what the news is here for. Duh. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always, and your families.